Thanks for tuning in to Prime Sports NASCAR as we wrap up the third race of the season and say goodbye to Florida. And what a crazy 3-week run in Florida it's been, Eric. As you mentioned in one of your articles already today, if you combine our 3 winners so far this season, Christopher Bell, Michael McDowell, and William Byron, they were a combined 1 win for 505 races before each of them won their race this season. That's just incredible.
Yeah, even Michael McDowell yesterday was asked following his 6th place finish, which, I mean, who would have thought that? Michael McDowell, 3 top 10s in a row about that. And he was like, I would have told you were crazy if you would have told me personally that I'd have 3 top 10 finishes leaving the first 3 races in Florida. It's just been that wild of a season. I think it's this unpredictable nature. It's a byproduct of several factors. But at the end of the day, you've got a guy that was 0 for 357, winning the Daytona 500. You got a guy that was 0 for 38, winning the road course race in Daytona. And you got a guy, William Byron, that out of his first 110 races, he won once. And then he gets a win again this past Sunday. So very unpredictable season, and is oddly enough, and we talked about this in past shows, that the points and the wild card and the wild nature of this, you got 3 guys that nobody, I think, expected. At least I know the 3 of us, we all kind of talked about Bell, a potential sleeper, but did I legitimately think that he was going to win a race and get his way in? No, I thought him and Byron, they would kind of be towards the back half of that playoff grid. Now they've got wins, so that puts pressure on the guys further up. That now what happens? What happens if you get some more unpredictable winners, and you might have some big name guys, past champion guys that are on that bubble come August, which, hey, that only helps NASCAR even further.
I get the feeling that this is just going to be the way it's going to be all season. And, you know, taking a look at some of the quotes from the drivers in your articles today, it just seems that because now we've gone that extra year where everybody's still dealing with the same equipment, it makes it a lot easier for these other lower level teams.
Yep.
They can play catch up. Because now the super teams can't overspend them, do certain things that the lower level teams couldn't do. There's no practice and all that stuff. So, look, it's not going to be like this next year because they're going to get to the new car. That's probably going to make, David and Goliath where they are usually. But I get the feeling this is the way it's going to be all season. And I don't think that means that William Byron, Christopher Bell, or Michael McDowell are necessarily going to be in top 10s every week. But I think we're going to find out that there are going to be a lot more surprise winners on a weekly basis. There's going to be a lot more parity. And that, like you said, I think that's great for NASCAR.
Yeah, I mean, they knew something, I guess, when they said this is going to be the best year yet, or best season ever, whatever that was, that promo for Fox. And yeah, from what I gather, I don't think any of these guys think that this is going to change. I mean, yes, the big teams can still eventually outspend and get their ways to the front. I mean, you still got a Gibbs car and a Hendrick car winning the last 2 weeks, but I think the unpredictable nature is here to stay. And like you said, and it's circumstances, COVID, no practice or qualifying. Like, how can you find more speed when you can't practice, you can't qualify, you can't test, parts are frozen. And you got a new car coming out next year. And remember, I think we talked about this at the start when you said how long into the season do we have to see of who upgraded or who spent the money the off season to upgrade their cars based off last year, especially with the new car coming out.
Looks like nobody.
Well, I think it looks like it from what it sounds like that they couldn't. It sounds like there was a parts freeze other than simulators, which, hey, look, I think it proved yesterday that these simulators are wrong. I mean, how many big name drivers do we hear? Like, how are we so far off? My car's so loose. This is nothing like that I thought this was supposed to be. And it made it fun for us because you have a Chris Buescher, a William Byron, you had Ryan Newman, Austin Dillon, a bunch of different guys we're not accustomed to seeing up front all race early on. And you had your guys like Harvick and Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, they all faded and couldn't get their way forward. And they're talking about how bad their cars were handling.
Yeah.
And they had all the simulator work and all the notes from last year and everything at their disposal, and they're still like this. I think that tells you a lot. And I wrote about yesterday, and I'll try to pull it up here, about how Homestead in years past has proven these guys that are good at Homestead, even was the season finale, they're finishing 1, 2, 3, 4. End of the day, those are the best cars to get there. Well, here we are last year, and Hamlin, Elliott, and Blaney were 1, 2, 3 in the Homestead race last year. And if you look at the full season, I mean, Hamlin had some of the top speed out of anybody. Chase Elliott won the championship, and Ryan Blaney, other than bad luck, he had really good speed. Is this mean this Homestead race is going to be a preview or precursor for the rest of the year like it has in years past? And if so, which it sounds like the drivers are saying that they are, buckle up. I think this is going to be a wild year. We haven't even got to the dirt race yet, and there's still 6 more road courses. So, yeah, I think this is here to stay. And hey, would you be okay putting the new car back to 2023 and seeing this another year? Because this is kind of fun.
Well, that new car, I tell you what, if that they had better make sure, if we have like a really great year this year, they better make sure that new car makes the racing exciting. If that new car just puts us right back to where we were, it's just new, and that's it. And we don't get any more exciting racing. We go back to less parity, and then it's just going to be a complete disaster. So
it would be.
I'm okay
we can't go
with the new car making the racing better. And I think that would be better, because I still think we can have parity with better race cars with less practice. I still think we can do that. The only thing that handicapping wise that it might take us a while, if this does go on the rest of the season, it might take us a while to figure things out, because there's just no rhyme or reason. William Byron, these guys can say what they want about, we were this and we whatever. You guys were like outside the top 25 coming into the race.
He had no laps led in his previous starts at Homestead, and he leads 102.
Yeah, so we don't want to hear that.
Yeah, no.
And they did say it. We got to keep, it's more than just this one race. We got to prove it, but that's what you got to do. We have to see William Byron, and we know he's talented, but we have to see whether or not this is the beginning of William Byron turning his career or not, or he's just a lucky, one driver that actually came out on top. Because who knows? Maybe next week, it's Cole Custer leading 150 laps and winning the race. It's like, okay, well, what do we do now? Every week, do we just take like 6 or 7 of the longest shot drivers and just throw them into a pool at 30 or 100 to 1 and just, hey, maybe one of those guys will win?
It's getting to that point. I think Byron was 33 to 1. I mean, and that's the best odds of a winner, because Bell and McDowell were past 60 to 1 and they won. So yeah, we're getting to that point. Like you said, it has no rhyme or reason to pick. Like, if you look at the picks, McDowell, he's been good on super speedways, but Bell on a road course, like second race of the season. William Byron, no laps led, never had a top 5 at Homestead before. New crew chief, I hear all the reasons and why it should work. I got a piece coming out tomorrow about that. But who in their right mind that still pick William Byron when you got all these other drivers to choose from? I mean, Christopher Bell comes with a high last week, and he could barely snip the top 20 yesterday. So I think this random nature could be here to stay. Like you said, it might take a few weeks for us to get used to this. Let's see what Vegas has this weekend, a track that typically you get winners that are good winners that are there. I got it right here. 18 of the 20 winners at Vegas are all Cup champions. The only 2 times not was Carl Edwards, and it wasn't like he was a slouch. So,
and this is the same time of year. Random. So I think, look, we could all sit here and say, well, Daytona, anything can happen. Road course, it was still kind of new, different. Anything could happen. And then keep in mind, Elliott probably wins if it wasn't for the late caution. And they had two caution situations we talked about the first 2 races that could have easily wound up being Chase Elliott, or Joey Logano. This race, maybe it was because, as we said last week, and I emphasized this with CJ when we were talking about it, it was the 3rd straight different month and time of year for this at Homestead Miami Speedway. Maybe that had something to do with it. So this is going to be, I think, the signature race that defines whether or not it's well, okay, that's what it was. It was just all three of those races, just it happened. Those were the weird reasons why. Or, wow, this is really crazy. And there is no rhyme or reason now, and this is going to last.
Yeah, that's this week, and I would say even next week um, with Phoenix.
Yeah.
Let's see what these two races. I mean, Phoenix is the championship round, so let's see how that looks. You got extra emphasis in a couple of weeks now. Hey, this is a big test session for what we have in November for a championship, and Vegas is a playoff track. Vegas is a track that is customary, like I just noted. Usually, your big names win. But also, you got to look at last year, the both races at Vegas that you've had two late race cautions completely alter the whole race. I mean, last year in this race, Byron and Bowman Bowman and Blaney were gone. Ross Chastain brings out the caution, bunches them up. They had to pit. Everybody else stayed out. Logano wins. You got the pit sequence at the end of the playoff race where Kurt Busch was in the top 10 all day and steals a win. Granted, he was still a playoff driver, and granted, the spring race winner was Joey Logano, but what if we don't get a caution? We still see a random winner. And then what if next week is the same kind of similar deal in Phoenix and get another random winner? Then we know that this whole season, at that point, that's going to really give me the litmus test to tell me, okay, this is how I need to bet these things now. If the favorites come out and win, then I'm like, okay, now let me get another week to see. But like you said, these next 2 weeks are really going to shape how we've got to look at the rest of the season.
Take a look at our fantasy standings, and this just show. I mean, look, the way I'm going to take this is, remember we talked about this also, and this definitely applies for everything that's gone on so far this season. The first half of the season doesn't really mean as much as the second half of the season, and now maybe even more so because how crazy things have gone for the first three races of the season. So I'm not going to panic myself just yet. I made the move, the first transaction of the season, and I know McDowell has a good history at this track, but I'm willing to take the chance because I didn't want one of you guys to take McDowell in case you were interested.
I was thinking about it.
Yeah, and I had the first pick, so I said, why don't I take advantage of getting off to a bad start and getting the first waiver order. And so, out goes DiBenedetto, who has a good history at Vegas. But McDowell comes in just too hot. And three straight races, I'd just be surprised if he just completely goes away the rest of the season. So I figured it was worth the gamble. It's not like, and plus, DiBenedetto has done absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and you got to look too. I'm contemplating. I know I'm next in the waiver order because CJ had 3 guys in the top 5 last week, so he's blowing us both out. But I'm debating on DiBenedetto. I mean, he finished runner-up both Vegas races, but
who would it be for?
He's got no luck right now. I don't want to drop Almirola. I'm thinking maybe Bubba. Maybe I ride him one more week, but I can't bring it to myself to drop Almirola yet, even though these aren't some great tracks coming up for him.
It would have to be Chastain or Wallace.
That's what I'm kind of debating between the two. But Chastain's great at Vegas. He did great there in Xfinity and trucks. So it's hard for me to cut ties with Bubba after 3 races with the Toyota, seeing how the other Toyotas haven't, other than Truex, been worth a damn anyways. Hamlin struggled to get back through there. So to me, I'm looking at maybe starting spot's going to play a little bit of a role. And like you did, McDowell, we know for a while he's going to be starting up front. I mean, he's 4th in points right now, or 3rd or 4th, something like that. And the overall points, he's finishing up front. He's starting. We don't know the starting lineup yet, but depending on how the metrics and everything, we know he's starting the top 10. DiBenedetto is going to be coming from 28th, 30th, somewhere back there. Like, it's going to take strategy to get him up there. Do I take a Chastain or an Almirola out, knowing that one of you guys could eventually pick them back up? And now I'm stuck with DiBenedetto all year.
That's true.
So, it's a lot of.
Sometimes you're better off just not overthinking.
Exactly. That's why my mind's now. As I thought about it today, and I'll sleep on it. I'll at least let you guys know in the morning. But it's probably best to stay put. But hey, we're 3 races into the year, and it's got us already thinking. Yeah. So that's a good thing.
Why not, right? And again, I hope this is for. Hopefully, at some point, we'll still have the parity. but we'll also have a little bit better of an idea of how to figure things out. So even if we do get some weird or long shot drivers winning, and I'm not talking about 80-1, I'm just talking about 20-1 or 15-1. That's what we're looking for. That's all I ask for in this sport is to get more 15, 10, 20, 25-1 drivers winning. If that happens, the more that happens, where we can actually break it down and say, yeah, okay, he's got a history at this track. He's still 25-1. Maybe he's in a slump, but the track is a good track for him. Hey, and then he goes out and wins. That's the kind of analysis that I want us to eventually get to in this sport, not all or nothing. Because that's what's happened. It's like, we went from 2 and 3 and 4 and 5-1 drivers to like, come on, there's no way that guy's going to win.
60-1. I think that's what we're going to get to.
We haven't picked a winner yet between the three of us. Yeah. And we have all these. I mean, I don't even know how many drivers we probably have had like 100 drivers between the three of us, and we haven't picked
not even had one winner yet. Yeah. Well, here's what I'm curious to see if, especially this week. I don't think the lines are going to go too far out of whack, but what are they going to start becoming with how can you keep throwing Hamlin and Elliott and Harvick at 5-1 to 6-1?
Eventually you can't.
Those guys are eventually going to come back to us like, hey, Harvick, are you going to get him in Atlanta at 10-1? I mean, are we going to get to that point? I mean, the other thing, our futures, our championship futures, like CJ's done, until something changes, I'm going to go the same drivers every week. Why not? I don't think. Why would this week change?
I know we haven't. That's all we've done every week almost. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know why. To me, do they start coming even back further? I mean, how can you have Hamlin at 5-1 to win the championship? He was 11th last week. I mean, I think we're eventually going to start getting some heavy favorites at 7-1, 8-1. I mean, are we going to get Daytona numbers for mile-and-a-half tracks now? Is that where this is going? Because if so, NASCAR at this point, and they've got a good marketing department. They've done a good job lately. I've got a friend that works in the marketing department. I need to text him about this. Like, after these 3 races on all these ESPN, Fox, all these shows, they've got betting shows. Hammer this now. Let bettors the jump in. That look at these winners that we're getting right now. You're going to Vegas. It's a betting world out there. Jump in. Get that. That's going to bring more eyeballs to the sport. That look, our winners have been 66-1, 61, and 33-1.
And look at you can make money.
Yes, and a lot of it if you do it right. So that NASCAR's got a good thing, and that's to me why I almost think they behind the scenes want this parity to keep going because it's just going to better the odds as we go. It's a good thing. So I hope it keeps coming.
So again, Vegas. So does that mean that even though they've been starting these East Coast Florida races at 3:30, which still drives me nuts, are they going to be starting any later, like 4:30 Eastern time?
Nope, same 3:30 for both races, and I did find out the reason Homestead was a 3:30, 3:48 green this past weekend. Because this was supposed to be the Fontana date, and that was the time slot that Fox and everybody it was already booked in. They couldn't change it, or they probably would have looked to a more 2 o'clock probably start. I know they're not going to go to what we want, a noon or a 1, but at least move it up to about a 2. But Fox has already had this lined in for 3:30. The West Coast races were supposed to be 3:30 Eastern starts, and Homestead yesterday was supposed to be a Fontana race that got switched out. So, but yeah, both of these next 2 weeks, 3:30. Then you got Atlanta after that, a 2 o'clock start. But it's going to be a debate, and we'll talk about this then because I kind of worked on some ahead for some burning questions is should that race be 500 miles?
The Atlanta race?
We'll talk about that in a couple weeks.
Why is that?
Yeah, 500 miles. It's a long race. It's at least 3.5 hours, almost 4 hours in some instances. And do we need a 500 mile race there? So, but we'll talk about that in a couple weeks.
The Bristol race is in the daytime on dirt, right?
Yep, daytime on dirt.
Yeah. And the fans, do we know if they're gonna? Because we noticed the fans in Homestead this past week. So
yep, fans are in Vegas. I think they were hoping for 20-30%. Most NASCAR races I've seen between now and like Memorial Day weekend are 20 to 30%. So which could only grow the farther you get along. And they've got bigger venues. So
let's get it going.
Yeah, they'll be. Yep, there will be fans this weekend in
All right,
attendance.
good. All right, so Eric, we'll look out for your analysis, of course, on racereviewonline.net to preview this week's race. When do you start previewing the race every week? Is it Wednesday?
Wednesday. Yep. Wednesday, and then we do the sleepers Thursday, and then the Bernie questions
All right,
Friday.
and CJ and I, of course, will preview the race on Wednesday. Every once in a while you'll make a cameo into that show, but otherwise we'll always have your picks available. And it looks like, is it Wednesday morning? Is that when we find out when the starting positions are every week?
Yeah, every Wednesday morning.
That's good.
Yep.
That's good
NASCAR
timing
will
because
reset.
it's important now. I think it's important, especially as crazy as these races have been, to find out what these starting positions are when you're trying to handicap these races.
Yeah, because it does mean something. So yeah, yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next Monday.
Yep, sounds good.